You may already know that Ellen DeGeneres and Rosie O'Donnell were pretty good friends back in the day. Well, today, Rosie O'Donnell is saying things that are making Ellen DeGeneres and her connection to evil Hollywood and Epstein even more apparent. Ellen DeGeneres panics as Rosie O'Donnell reveals what they did on Epstein Island. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Now let's dive into the video.
I learned that things happened here that never should have happened. I take that very seriously, and I want to say I am so sorry to the people who were affected.
And I come to find out there's not that much Hollywood in Hollywood. The Hollywood in my mind is not the Hollywood in real life. I want to talk about things. If Bill Cosby is accused of sedating and raping all these women, and it's the #1 story in the news, I want to talk about that, yes. You know, celebrity culture has, I think, collapsed at this point, and I think that's a death that needed to happen, you know, because the amount of excess, the amount of debauchery is stunning.
After 30 years of holding Hollywood's biggest secrets, Rosie O'Donnell is letting the world know what Ellen DeGeneres was really doing on Epstein Island.
30 years of holding the secrets. This is what we're talking about. Every person that comes on the show and talks about what they know has been holding on to these secrets for so long. And it's really nice to see certain people start to speak out for the protection of others.
Both of them are ridiculous. Who thinks that antiquated way that you're going to find your love in a paradise island and it's going to last forever?
When Ellen's daytime talk show became popular, the access to these elite circles became a real thing in her life, and Rosie watched it happen in real time. She saw her friend cutting ties with the regular people who knew her before she was a billionaire. Ellen started hanging out with people who flew private and attended private parties in secret islands. Rosie also knew exactly what she was trying to do, but she didn't say anything. In 2004, Ellen went on Larry King Live for an interview, and during the conversation, Larry mentions Rosie's talk show. This was Ellen's chance to stand up for her friend, but what she said there broke Rosie's heart.
2004, we're talking about 22 years ago. Things are coming up from 22 years ago, and this is where maybe that friendship began to see some fractures.
Larry King asked her, and Kelly and I were in bed watching it, and he asked her, "Whatever happened to Rosie O'Donnell? Her show went down the tubes." And Ellen said, "I don't know, Rosie. We're not friends." And that was like one of the most painful things that ever happened to me in show business in my life.
Just like that, 30 years of friendship was destroyed in a single sentence, and from that moment on, Rosie was done. Not just done with Ellen, but done being silenced. She knew things about Ellen's new lifestyle that nobody else did. She knew about her private trips, secret gatherings, and most importantly, she knew what was really happening on Epstein Island.
I noticed right away there was a different culture about celebrity. Broke my heart to be in a business that creates and sells those lies for profit. You know, it was very heavy, to tell you the truth. And I knew in order for me to be a good parent to this 12-year-old child that I've got to be around for 20 more years. I need to take care of myself.
For years, Rosie just watched Ellen dance around on television, giving away prizes and pretending to be the kindest person in the world. And the whole time, that pain from the betrayal never went away.
The way she treated me must be the way she treats others.
And we did hear, right? I mean, it's no secret that Ellen DeGeneres didn't treat the people that worked for her or even some of her guests on her show very well. There's been so many testimonies of people that have put in complaints about work treatment that went on the Ellen DeGeneres show and Game of Games. So it seems that she was treating her friends the exact same way, not even admitting that they were friends at all.
And I felt, very betrayed.
But then last year, Rosie made a move that nobody saw coming. She fled to Ireland, and once she got settled there, she posted a long statement on Instagram, and right there next to it, she put up a photograph of Jeffrey Epstein. That was her warning shot, and her way of telling the world that she was ready to talk about the stuff happening at Epstein Island, while exposing everyone who was part of that dark network. Ellen saw this coming and knew exactly what it meant. She knew what Rosie was holding her secrets, and in a desperate attempt to play nice, Ellen publicly shared Rosie's post with a caption that said, "Good for you, Rosie." After ignoring her for 20 years, rejecting their friendship on national television, and after blacklisting her from Hollywood, now Ellen was trying to act like a supportive friend. But her plan didn't work. The newly released Epstein files started connecting dots that nobody could ignore. Ellen's name was in those files, and people were starting to ask the questions that she had spent decades making sure nobody would ever ask.
Ellen DeGeneres is named in the Epstein documents, and that part is real. Her name appears in the broader index of over 300 high-profile individuals that show up across the investigative materials. Flight logs, communications, third-party interviews, peripheral records.
When Epstein files were released and people started going through them, what came out was absolutely jaw-dropping. Testimonies that completely shatter everything Ellen ever wanted us to believe about her.
The biggest common thread that everyone told me is that what goes on behind the scenes is a far cry from what the show represents in their Be Kind messaging, and what the show and what Ellen DeGeneres herself profits off
every single day.
So what was actually going on here is the true person behind the mask of Ellen DeGeneres was not that be kind, super nice person. Not to her workers, not to her guests, and not during her personal time, where she apparently spent some of that, well, of course in dirty Hollywood, but also potentially on Epstein's island.
Every single day for years, she sat there on that stage with that big smile, telling people to be kind, treat each other with respect, while sharing love and positivity. Meanwhile, she was living this completely different life behind closed doors. She became so arrogant in her own mind that she wasn't even hiding it properly anymore. And the Sandra Bullock segment is where things get really messy. During that interview, Ellen and Sandra discussed some kind of beauty treatment derived from young human skin cells.
It is an extraction from a piece of skin.
See, this was weird to me. We've shown this segment on the channel before. So this is talking about euthanizing your skin, keeping yourself looking young, utilizing foreskin from young people. I don't know why Ellen DeGeneres would want this to come up. Besides putting her guest in an awkward situation, why would you want this spoken of if this was a world that you were involved in as well? It seems like you're kind of exposing something a little bit that you're a part of. Doesn't seem smart.
That came from a young person far, far away, and they somehow figured out how to extract.
It's foreskin from a Korean baby.
And so we call it, I call it the facial, and I think when you see how good it is to your face, you too will run to your local facialist and say, give me the
Looking back at it now, it's clear they were hinting at these dark rituals on live TV because they never thought anyone would actually figure out what they were really talking about.
Now, of course, it was done in a joking, funny way. If we were in the audience back then, we probably would have been laughing as well because it was being presented as a joke. But in actuality, now with the context that we have today, it's suddenly not funny anymore.
But they were wrong, because the people who dug into this stuff also found connections between Ellen and the Wayfair cabinet scandal. If you don't know about this, let me break it down for you. Wayfair is this big online furniture website, and for a while there were all these industrial cabinets being sold for absolutely ridiculous prices. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars for something that should have cost maybe a few $100. And guess what? The cabinets were mysteriously named after real children who had recently gone missing. Many online theories claim these were being used for money laundering, but not just that. Reports suggest there was actually illegal human transportation involved with this whole thing, like moving people through these transactions, and Ellen was reportedly tied to all of it. Then there's the set design thing, where people went back and compared the actual buildings on Epstein Island to the set of the Ellen DeGeneres show.
First of all, I didn't know about that Wayfair thing. I wonder if that was a way to move people back and forth and to have them bought and sold. Very interesting point right there. Now the set, I wanted to pause right here to take a look at it with you guys because this is probably the best look that we have of her set to the temple, as they called it on Epstein Island. It's just shockingly similar. Is there potentially a coincidence here? Maybe. But in my opinion, and in many of yours, I'm sure as well, this was a direct, replica of what went on the island. You have the palm trees, the blue skies, you have the building with the white and the blue. It's just too close to assume that it was just a coincidence. What do you think about that, by the way? Was her set designed or inspired by Epstein Island? Curious about what you think.
Compare the actual buildings on Epstein Island to the set of the Ellen DeGeneres show, and the resemblance is quite obvious.
Show him the image of the temple that was on the island. Look at it.
Oh, well, you know where that is too, right? It's a similar image to that, right?
No.
I know Jamie does.
What is it?
It's on the set of a famous talk show that's now not on anymore.
Oh, Ellen? Was that Ellen?
Yeah.
Really?
Ellen didn't just have a television studio. She built a replica of her dark sanctuary right there in Los Angeles with the same architectural elements and the same creepy vibe. When Rosie started making moves and signaling that the truth was finally coming out, Ellen knew exactly what was about to hit her. She understood that everything she'd built, everything she'd protected for all these years, was about to come crashing down. And let me tell you what happened next was pure panic. Ellen knew she had to move fast. She'd been through public backlash before. We all remember when her show got exposed for being this toxic workplace environment. She lost deals, sponsors, and she called that whole situation being kicked out of show business like it was some minor inconvenience.
Now, this is probably going to be the point where they discuss why she fled from the United States, blames it on Trump being president, when really it was because she was involved in Diddy and Epstein related things.
But she knew her involvement with Epstein's circle was completely different. This wasn't about people thinking she was mean to her employees. This was about something that would put her in front of a judge. The clock was ticking and she needed to act before the government could freeze everything she had. Her bank accounts, her assets, all of it could be locked down at any moment. So she started doing what other celebrities have always done.
So I'm going to start selling some things that I consider art. Because, you know, they're art. It just depends on if you're the first to put it out. That's how you kind of establish something.
This wasn't some casual auction where you wait for the right buyer at the right price. This was a desperate fire sale, dumping pieces as fast as she could find someone willing to pay. She managed to move $10 million worth of art, including works by Jean-Michel Basquiat, a famous painter whose pieces sell for millions of dollars. She also sold these custom sheep sculptures by Francois Xavier Lalande that were valued at around $1 million each. Selling that stuff must have been like ripping out pieces of her soul, but she didn't have a choice. If she wanted any chance of staying free, she needed liquid cash, and she needed it now.
Who needs $1 million sheep? Just saying.
The California Bluffton estate went on the market and sold for a staggering $96 million.
Whoa.
That was the major piece of their estate portfolio in the United States. They were wiping their hands clean of everything in the beach bungalow in Montecito. That one was a whole saga in itself. Originally listed at $29 million, then pulled off the market because they thought they could get more, then relisted at $33.9 million when they had second thoughts. But as the panic set in and the reality of what was coming became huge, they dropped that price right back down to the original $29 million. They just wanted someone to buy it quickly. They didn't care about making money on the deal anymore. They just needed the cash in hand.
And according to TMZ, she has moved 2 hours outside of London.
When they landed, they knew they couldn't just disappear without some kind of explanation. They needed a cover story, something the public would accept without asking too many questions. So Ellen decided to blame it on the presidential election results. She claimed she was disillusioned, that America had changed in ways she couldn't accept, that she needed to get away from all the chaos.
I mean, and honestly, when you think about it, this is a perfect exit plan. All the tides, because we know her beliefs, we know Trump's beliefs, or I should say the Republican beliefs, and they don't mesh. So it was a great way for her to say, okay, I'm out of here because I just can't vibe with what's coming of the United States of America. That was the excuse. And a lot of people bought it. A lot of people would say, you know, things are so bad right now. I can't believe that he's in office being Trump. I'm going to leave the United States too. A lot of people were saying these types of things when really it's because she was the person that was doing the wrong.
A source close to Ellen and her wife, Portia de Rossi, told The Wrap that the couple has placed their Montecito home on the market and have decided to relocate to the Cotswolds in England due to the political climate in the United States.
That's a complete lie. The truth is, Ellen and Portia had actually bought their new house in rural England months before the election even happened. The whole political narrative was just a convenient excuse to hide what they were really running from. They weren't fleeing because they were upset about election results. They were fleeing because they knew the Epstein files were about to drop, and they were terrified of what would happen when the authorities started coming for them. Before all this Epstein stuff even came out, the cracks in Ellen's perfect image had already started showing, and honestly, that earlier scandal gave us a preview of who she really was behind the scenes. It was a preview that most people didn't take seriously enough at the time. Back in 2020, things started unfolding. Multiple investigations into the Ellen DeGeneres show revealed a workplace culture that was absolutely toxic. Employees described working there like being in some kind of authoritarian regime. They were actually forbidden from making eye contact with Ellen herself.
One makeup artist was quoted as saying that when he tried to make small talk with Ellen, she supposedly said, "Who do you think you are? Don't look at me."
But here's the thing. Hollywood already knew what Ellen was really like, and once the stories started coming out, multiple celebrities decided to speak up. Brad Garrett, the comedian and actor, publicly confirmed that Ellen's behavior was well known throughout the industry. Leah Thompson said the same thing. Margaret Cho, Dakota Johnson, all of them came forward and said the same thing, that Ellen's behavior wasn't some surprise or some isolated incident. It was common knowledge. Everyone in that circle knew exactly who she was, and they all stayed quiet about it because that's how Hollywood works. Nobody wants to be the one who speaks out and gets blacklisted, and the human cost of all this, well, this is where it gets really sad.
I just wanted to say the past 11 days have been really tough for everyone. But to honor Twitch, I think the best thing that we can do is to laugh and hug each other.
Stephen Twitch Boss was the DJ on Ellen's show for years, but when the workplace scandal broke in 2020, Ellen put pressure on him to publicly defend her, to go out there and say everything was fine, that Ellen was a good person. Twitch's wife, who has looked into this whole thing, believes that kind of pressure and stress played a big role in what happened to him later.
So now Twitch was awesome. He was funny, he was lovable. Everyone, I guess I'm speaking for people that I shouldn't be, but most people just would see Twitch and joy would come to your hearts and minds. This is part of why he was part of that show. Now, Ellen DeGeneres, obviously knowing the great sentiment that he has, asked him to vouch for her, have my back and let everyone know that this isn't all true, that I'm actually pretty cool to work for. Between that pressure and the pressure that he had from seeing everything that went on in the dirty Hollywood side, everything that went on between her and Diddy, everything that went on potentially between her and Epstein and the whole island stuff, it's weighing on any person. And apparently he took things into his own hands. Unless if he knew too much, and someone else decided to pretend that he took it into his own hands.
He was going through so much, and he was hiding so much, and there must have been a lot of shame in that. And he was wrestling with a lot inside himself, and he was trying to self-medicate and cope with all those feelings because he didn't want to put it on anyone.
In December 2022, Twitch passed away. The show had ended, his routine was gone, and according to some sources, he was still dealing with the aftermath of being forced to defend someone he maybe knew wasn't worth defending. There's also this Anne Heche situation, which honestly feels like one of those things that people don't talk about enough.
The second you hear that it may be coming, get out of the way.
Wow.
Don't wait.
Anne was Ellen's ex-girlfriend, and in 2022, she passed away in a car accident. But here's what makes it creepy. Reports started coming out that Anne was actually working on an exposing documentary at the time of her passing, something that would have shed light on her time with Ellen and the world she was part of.
You broke up with her because she had a lot of money, or you broke up with her because...
I broke up with her because her goal was to have a lot of money, and mine was to find love, and hers was I want 60 billion. Good luck. Our forks are never going to meet. The further we stay on with this, the further we will be apart.
The way Ellen treated vulnerable people on her show is pretty chilling. Justin Bieber was on her show multiple times when he was just a kid, and Ellen would drill him about his personal life, about trauma he'd been through, about things that clearly made him uncomfortable.
Now, I understand that you run a talk show. We got to look at this from both sides, even from Ellen's side. You run a talk show, you're the host, you have to talk about spicy stuff. The problem here is that she did this at the cost of many people's integrity. Specifically in the case of Justin Bieber, where he was at points in time that he was on the show, he was a minor. At other points in time, he was still very young, and it just didn't sit well. And everyone thinks that Justin Bieber and Ellen had such a great relationship, but really, as you'll see, many times he felt very uncomfortable on the show, as did many other guests.
I was just talking about just it being a new chapter for me, and basically saying that I'm sorry for the stuff that I've done. And it's not like I'm not searching for people's approval, but I just want people to know that that's not me, and I was doing stuff that wasn't me.
She knew exactly what she was doing. She was testing boundaries, seeing how far she could push someone who wasn't powerful enough yet to push back, and that wasn't even the worst of it. Ellen also had this relationship with Diddy, joking around with him about his creepy lifestyle. People who understand how that world works say Ellen was basically serving as a gatekeeper, a connector for young talent into this dark elite world. She wasn't just passively associated with terrible people. She was also enabling them by promoting them on her show.
Let's show a picture of you at, was it like a 70s themed birthday party? Or was that just a look that you decided to go with that night?
It was a 70 themed Soul Train party, but this is me once every first week of the month on a Friday night.
What are you holding there?
I'm holding my package.
Because you are.
Yeah.
Weird, uncomfortable.
Somebody's got to do it.
Joe Rogan, when he talked about this stuff, made a point that stuck with a lot of people. He said Ellen's nice act always felt forced, like she was performing a fake act rather than actually being kind.
Ellen's rough. That's
Ellen
a rough
is like
one.
an old.
But it's a rough one now.
It's a rough one now because she was running Abu Ghraib in the back of her show.
He even described this arrogant behavior that he noticed in certain Hollywood elites, a sense of feeling that they were above the rules that apply to everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear that in context of everything else, it makes a lot of sense.
When you see, like, a lot of people saying that someone who seems so nice is not nice at all.
She doesn't seem nice, but that.
So right here, he says she doesn't seem nice. So this guest saw right through Ellen and always did. But to most people, to the average viewer, Ellen does seem nice and fun until you actually think about what she does to people, and he knows it.
That people have a very poor judge of character. She doesn't seem nice. It seems forced.
So while Ellen was hiding out in her fancy house in England, the Hollywood power structure kicked into full protection mode. They released statements trying to spin things, saying Ellen's name is in the Epstein files, but she was just one name on a list of about 300 people. They were trying to make it sound like she was barely connected, like it was just some coincidence that her name showed up. But fans aren't buying it, and here's why. When you're part of an elite network like that, your name being on a list isn't meaningless. Access isn't given to random people. You don't get invited to private islands unless you're part of the inner circle. So the media's minimization strategy, trying to bury the whole thing in technicalities and loopholes, that's exactly what you'd expect from a system designed to protect its own people.
Trying to put up a smoke screen so you don't see what's actually happening and you get distracted by things that are just being said and that are being made to happen just as a distraction.
Multiple folks who study how these things work call it intentional, flooding the internet with different excuses, different narratives, different angles of defense. It's all designed to make the actual truth seem crazy. Like if you start connecting dots and seeing a bigger picture, they'll make you feel like you're being paranoid, like you're seeing things that aren't there. It's a crazy tactic meant to exhaust people, to make them give up and go back to sleep so they stop asking questions.
I don't think Hollywood's really ready for her return. I think they will continue to punish her, but I do have some intel for you from her current neighbors in the UK. They don't like her. They aren't friendly towards her, and they hate all of the celebrities like Ellen moving into this once sacred and anonymous area and disturbing and in some cases disrespecting the culture.
No matter how many articles come out trying to set the record straight, the truth has a way of getting through eventually. And that's where Rosie O'Donnell comes back in. By moving to Ireland, Rosie has positioned herself in a place where the Hollywood machine simply can't reach her. She's outside their jurisdiction, outside their media ecosystem, outside all the pressure points they normally use to silence people. And she's made it very clear that she isn't afraid.
And the beast we're fighting is not just that round guy in an orange spray tan. It's a big cabal of powerful white men, and it's time to end it.
When she posted that Epstein photograph and then held her ground against all the backlash, that sent a very clear message. She wasn't going to be intimidated. She wasn't going to back down just because powerful people wanted her to stay quiet. And there's something almost poetic about this whole thing. While Ellen was selling off her art collection and her historic properties and running to another country in the middle of the night, Rosie was building a new life somewhere that felt safe. She said with her actions that she wanted to live in a place where human decency still meant something.
I actually really like when people that were celebrities at one point in time take it down a level and start their own way of talking to others, creating podcasts like Roseanne Barr did, kind of like Joe Rogan as well, although he's really still in the spotlight quite a bit. Just real talk, talking to the American people, talking to the world about what they know, how they feel about things, and bringing guests on to really talk the truth. I think this is valuable content that we need more of now.
A place far removed from the sick rituals and the corruption and the lies. And I think that's the real story here. It's not just about what Ellen did or didn't do. It's about the fact that someone who knew the truth for 30 years finally decided that keeping quiet wasn't an option anymore, no matter how powerful the people she was about to expose happened to be. Ellen DeGeneres, the woman who once commanded the most watched talk show time slot in daytime television, who had Hollywood eating out of the palm of her hand, who built an empire on a 2-word slogan, that woman is now living in permanent exile in the English countryside. She's sitting in some stone house in the Cotswolds, far away from the bright lights and the studios and the cameras that made her who she was. And the worst part for her, she knows that no matter how hard the media machine tries to spin things, the truth is out there now.
Although we are now hearing that she is planning to come back to live in the United States and that she may already be living in California in a new home that she's purchased. So maybe her being out of the country was short-lived.
We don't have to wait for a court ruling or an official verdict or some legal smoking gun to know what happened. The evidence is in her actions. Think about it. Would an innocent person sell $10 million worth of art in a fire sale? Would an innocent person dump their historic properties and flee to another country in the middle of the night, telling friends they never plan to come back? Would an innocent person liquidate everything they own and run like that? That's not what someone does when they're being wrongly accused. That's what someone does when they know exactly what they did and they're terrified of the consequences. The panic itself is the confession. And yeah, the Be Kind brand is finished. That slogan that used to be everywhere, on merchandise and t-shirts and hashtags, it's all just ash now.
But what we do now know is the ugly side of Hollywood and Epstein files. Now that more of this is coming out, people are being dragged into the dirt. Ellen DeGeneres is one that's been dragged in multiple times, probably because there is a lot of truth in the stories that we're hearing. I want to again thank you guys for being subscribers of the channel. It means a lot to me. And if you want to see more about Ellen DeGeneres, this video takes you even deeper into her darker side. I hope to see you guys over there.